actually it was during the competition for players between the WHA and the NHL. And one year the NHL decided to hold their draft not in public in a room or with tables and everything. They decided they would do it on the phone. And they would do it in secret, so only that the people that were involved in it knew who was drafted. They wouldn't give any information to the media until later. And so it was a phone draft. So that meant every round that Clarence Campbell, the president of the NHL, would have to place a phone call to the next team in line in the draft, and then he would tell that team who was drafted in the 17 rounds, 17 teams before, because they didn't know either. So we would have to go through all the names. Well, this made a draft that went on. In fact, that's when I became old that day. And, so by the second day of the draft, it went over 2 days, and every time Clarence Campbell would have to say, with the third selection of the 7th round, the Vancouver Canucks take James Konakowicz, K-U-N-O. So this is going on, and we're sitting there listening on a speakerphone. So I got near the 11th round, and 10th, 11th round, I guess, and we were pretty bored, and I was a PR guy then, so I had to get out and at the end of the day, keep the records of everything, so we'd send out a release. So I said, why don't we draft somebody that doesn't exist? And he said, Imlach said, what do you mean? And I said, that's just, you know, like, let's drive Campbell crazy. You don't care right now, do you? He said, no, I don't think I have anything on draft anymore. So, and as Derek Smith says, oh, thank God I was drafted in the 10th round. But, so, I said, well, why don't we draft a Japanese player? Now, the truth is, in northern Japan, there is hockey. There still is. They play Class B in the World Championships, I think. And so I just thought there was a Japanese gardening store up in Elma called Tsujimoto's. And I thought, how about Tsujimoto? And John Anderson, late John Anderson, was the scouting director, said, I know a good Japanese first name, Taro, which is a legitimate Japanese first name. So I made up some statistics for the guy. 15 goals, 10 assists for the Tokyo Katanas. He's 5'8", 175 pounds, chunky. Good skater though. Did well, handled the puck well. You know, he was already with the little biographical debt on him. So when the round came to Buffalo, Imlach was Buffalo selects in the 11th round from the Tokyo Katanas. Taro Tsujimoto. So the selection is made. Now we're sitting there, and Campbell spells it back to us to make sure he's got it right. Now this poor guy, he was a distinguished lawyer. He was a prosecutor at Nuremberg, right? I mean, he's a very, very dignified man, even though he did work at hockey later on. He has to spell back. We just sat there rolling, and him spelling Taro Tsujimoto back 17 times. So we thought the gag was over, and then I said, well, let's Rip Simona, still with the Sabres, who is a friend of mine, he's the equipment manager. He said, you know, why don't we take this a step further? So, because the Knoxes thought that there really was a Taro Tsujimoto. So we didn't tell them. And so Floyd Smith, myself, and Imlach and John Anderson were in on the gag, and Dick Johnson, the late hockey writer for the News, was a good buddy of mine. He said, come on, you didn't draft a Japanese player. I said, there it is, Dick, you know. So training camp comes, and we do a training camp guide. Sure enough, we gave him number, John, you remember the number 13, wasn't it? 13. He was 13, yeah. Number 13, we go to St. Catherine's, put a stall in with equipment in it, all with his name on it and everything. Skates, sticks, had sticks made up with his name on it, you know. And the end of the story is, so he doesn't show up for camp. Seymour Knox, one of the owners says, is this Japanese guy coming? I said, well, we're not sure. And sometimes people don't show up for camp. So the end of the story is, beside the fact that he was in the record book until 2004, and the league got tired of answering questions about him. And they now listed as an ineligible draft. Anyway, when Taro, the Knoxes were having lunch with a friend in the Holiday Inn in St. Catherine's, and across the room, Floyd Smith and I noticed a fellow who obviously was of Japanese descent, maybe a Japanese Canadian, maybe a Japanese national, I don't know. But we noticed him sitting there eating at a table with another guy, and we thought, So I went to the front desk, and I talked to the woman. I said, can you do a page here? Oh, yes, sir. What would you like done? I said, well, like you to page, and I wrote down the name and said Taro Tsujimoto. And I waited until this guy got up from his table to leave, and then they paged Taro Tsujimoto. Now he's walking out the door, both Knoxes are right behind him. They wanted to meet Taro. And Floyd Smith and I were laughing so hard that Floyd rolled off the couch and I was right onto the floor. And I was letting time I was starting bed, and I think about it now, I have tears coming to my eyes. So we finally had to conclude him in that Taro. But remember one thing, Taro lives.
Yeah.
Yes, in various manifestations.
He does. There are T-shirts, there are jerseys, there's all kinds of stuff around. In fact, when I am a dear departed to someone, when I'm gone, I'm sure that not no man write my epitaph, but if there is an obituary in the papers on me, it's gonna start out. The guy who invented the fictional Japanese hockey player, Taro Tsujimoto, died yesterday. Can't remember his name.
Paul, isn't it true that the